I chased Riley for 10 years, but the wedding she once promised me never came. I spent a whole year planning the perfect proposal, ready to go down on one knee in front of everyone. But before I could, I overheard something that shattered me. "Asher's like an old sweater from last season," Riley said, laughing with her girlfriends. "No thrill left, boring to wear, but kind of a waste to throw out." One of her friends nudged her, half laughing, half worried. "Riley, maybe dial it down a notch?" But Riley just smiled, bright, unapologetic, and utterly sure of herself. "Please. Asher's not going anywhere. He's been into me since we were kids." Then, as if to twist the knife, she wrapped her arms around another man, one I recognized all too well. Milo. The pretty boy I once helped financially, back when he couldn't pay tuition, rent, or even afford groceries. Now he was nestled comfortably under her arm, letting her stroke his hair like some pet she'd tamed. I didn't flinch. I didn't say a word. I just turned around and walked out. Within a week, I was in Vegas. Within a month, I was married, to someone who looked at me like I wasn't disposable. The next time Riley and I crossed paths, it was by accident, or maybe fate, if you believe in that sort of thing. The moment her eyes landed on the wedding band on my finger, her whole expression cracked. Her voice trembled. "Asher. You married someone else? Behind my back? Are you playing some kind of game with me?" She stood at the threshold of the dimly lit private room, blinking fast as if the sting behind her eyes might fade if she refused to cry. I stayed silent, watching from the shadows, phone still in hand. Inside the room, Riley tilted Milo's chin with a single finger, her nails gliding along his skin with the lazy cruelty of someone teasing a cat. He smiled up at her, doe-eyed, soft, obedient. My ex-fiancé and my former student. One a liar who talked about vows, the other a boy I once protected. Now both tangled together in a scene I would never forget. Inside the lounge, a few of Riley's close friends were sprawled across the velvet couch, drinks in hand, gossip flowing freely. The air smelled like perfume, wine, and secrets. One of them glanced at Riley's lazy posture, her legs crossed, Milo practically draped across her side, and grinned. "God, Riley," she teased, "you really know how to live. A loyal man like Asher waiting at home, and you're out here cuddling with a guy half your age." Another chimed in with a wicked laugh. "You're not worried Asher might throw a fit if he finds out?" Riley didn't even blink. She made a soft clicking sound with her tongue and shrugged. "Asher? He's a little clingy, sure. Might get jealous, at most." Her friends burst into laughter. "Yeah," said Tessa, swirling her drink, "that man worships you. Even if he flips out, give him a few hours, he'll talk himself down and come crawling right back." Riley's voice was airy and cool, like she was commenting on the weather. "He can't live without me." And she meant it. Every word. The way she said it, it wasn't arrogance. It was certainty. A kind of cruel grace. I stood in the hallway just long enough to hear that. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was the one who gave her that certainty. I looked down at the velvet box in my hand. Inside was the engagement ring I'd picked out months ago, flawless cut, custom setting, paid for in full with a year's worth of planning. Suddenly, I felt ridiculous. 10 years of my life, and for what? I should have gotten a dog instead. Riley used to whisper promises to me with her arms around my neck, back when we were kids. "Asher," she'd say, grinning wide, "when we grow up, we're gonna get married. I'm gonna love you forever. Just you." One sentence. That's all it took to keep me trailing behind her for a decade. From 15 to 25, through first crushes and job interviews, through scraped knees and first heartbreaks, I orbited her like she was the sun. And somewhere along the way, she stopped seeing me. The girl who once threw a fit over a love note in my backpack had become a woman who laughed in dim rooms with other men, calling me boring like I was a piece of furniture she forgot to throw away. Riley Monroe. The girl I thought I'd spend forever with. The woman who made forever feel like a joke. But the truth is, Riley never really knew me. She thought I couldn't live without her. But I never needed Riley. What I needed was a capable woman to bear my child, to carry on the Langford family name. That's it. It could have been her. But it didn't have to be. I turned to leave, already done with the scene, until a familiar voice rang out behind me. Asher? What are you doing here? Tessa. Sharp-eyed as ever. Her words sliced through the air and dragged every gaze in the room straight to me. Riley turned too, slowly, like she had all the time in the world. She didn't loosen her grip around Milo. Her hand was still draped over his shoulder, fingers resting on his collarbone with casual intimacy. And that smile, God, that smile, curved at the corners of her lips like she already knew how this would end. She was sure of herself. Certain. Certain I'd be hurt. Certain I'd look at her and break inside. Certain I'd play the fool one more time, devoted, groveling, heartbroken. But she miscalculated. I was going to walk away in silence. Dignity intact. But now? No. Not anymore. I stepped into the room, letting the door shut behind me with a soft, final thud. I crossed the distance slowly, deliberately, until I stood towering over Riley, her throne of false power suddenly feeling small. The boy in her arms, Milo, looked up at me like a deer caught in headlights. His voice cracked when he spoke. Mr. Langford." I glanced down, eyes landing on his face for 2 cold seconds. Then I tilted my head, frowning slightly, pretending to search my memory. "Sorry. Do I know you?" Milo froze, visibly shrinking back, his fingers curling nervously into the sleeve of Riley's dress. "Miss Monroe," he murmured, almost seeking shelter in her name. I smirked. "Relax. I'm messing with you. Of course I remember." Then I let it drop, right between them. "So you're the guy I basically funded, only for you to end up in my girlfriend's bed. The little opportunist." The silence was instant. Heavy. Riley's smile faltered, just a flicker. Milo looked like he wanted to disappear. And I'd never felt more awake. Riley's brow creased. "Asher." Her tone had changed, sharper now, edged with warning. "Can you not?" she said tightly. "Try using your words like a grown-up." I nodded calmly. "I can." That earned a round of knowing glances from the room. Riley let out a low scoff, and the others looked on with smug satisfaction, as if I'd just proven I was still the same docile fool they'd always known. I smiled faintly and stepped forward. "Everyone knows," I said, voice low but clear, "that for the past 10 years, I've been Riley's doormat. I lowered my standards, let her treat me like a safety net. A human crutch. A parasite, even." Riley's expression shifted, just barely, but enough to catch. Some of the color returned to her face as she narrowed her eyes at me. "What do you want, Asher?" I met her gaze evenly. "I came to bring you a gift." That drew a flicker of annoyance. She sighed, already sounding bored. "Just leave it and go." Of course she expected that. For 10 years, I'd been feeding her little offerings, bracelets, tickets, rare books, notes slipped into her bags. No matter how cold she acted, I never got angry. I just kept giving. Week after week, year after year. And maybe that's why she was so sure she still had me wrapped around her finger. But this time, I raised my hand, and slapped her across the face. Crack. The sound cut through the room like a bullet. Sharp. Final. The music didn't matter. The dim lights didn't matter. For a second, everything froze. Silence. Everyone stared, breath held. Riley's head whipped to the side, her hair falling across her cheek. Then she turned, eyes blazing with fury. Asher. I smiled, not out of pleasure, but precision. Gift delivered, I said, my voice calm, measured. Miss Monroe. Hope we never meet again. Then I gave her a mockingly polite little wave, turned on my heel, and walked straight out the door. No begging. No regrets. Not this time. I didn't stay to see their reactions. Didn't care, honestly. As soon as I stepped out of the private room, I headed down the hall to find Carl, the manager of Northbridge Club. He spotted me instantly, straightened his back like a soldier, and walked over with careful, measured steps. Mr. Langford, he greeted, voice laced with nervous respect. We weren't expecting you tonight. I reached into the breast pocket of his suit, pulled out his lighter, and lit a cigarette. Has room 6 closed out their tab yet? I asked. Of course I already knew the answer. They never paid until they were walking out. Carl laughed softly, trying to ease the tension. Room 6? Oh, Miss Monroe's table. No, not yet. She usually puts everything on her house account. Northbridge Club was one of our family's holdings. Everyone on the payroll knew exactly who Riley was, or rather, who she was supposed to become, the future Mrs. Langford. So they'd learn to play along. Every time she walked in, nobody charged her a cent. Every cocktail, every bottle, every dish, slapped onto the invisible tab of silent understanding. And it didn't stop with her. Her friends had been riding the same wave. Flash her name, and the doors stayed open. The bills disappeared. I took a drag on the cigarette, exhaled slowly, then flicked the ash to the floor, right next to Carl's polished loafers. What the hell are you grinning for? I asked coolly. He froze. Who told you it was okay to let them run up tabs like that? You gonna cover their bill out of your own pocket? Carl's smile vanished. I'm sorry, sir, I didn't. I cut him off, voice dropping an octave. Here's what you're going to do. In a few minutes, when they're done playing pretend in there, you're going to bring them the check. Carl blinked. The whole balance, sir. I looked him dead in the eyes. Every last dollar Riley and her little entourage have ever charged to this club. Print it. Present it. Collect it. Carl didn't move. Didn't speak. He knew I wasn't bluffing. The Langfords don't bluff. I pulled out my phone and brought up a photo of Milo, young, pale, smiling like he didn't know what consequences meant. I held it out toward Carl. This guy. He's been here before. Carl hesitated, studying my expression like a bomb he wasn't sure would go off. Yes, sir, he said cautiously. I've seen him here a few times. The charges were always under Miss Monroe's name. I crushed the cigarette under my heel and gave him a long, deliberate look. From now on, I said coldly, don't let this one put anything on anyone's tab. You hear me? Carl blinked. What? He's still a student, I replied, voice low and dangerous. Does that sound like someone who should be running a club tab to you? Milo was 18. Senior year. Right at the edge of adulthood. A beautiful age, one the world hasn't had time to break yet. But I wondered, without my sponsorship, without the Langford name padding his life, would it still look so charmed? Carl swallowed hard and shook his head. No, sir. No problem. I didn't say another word. Just turned and walked out. By the time I was in the back seat of my car, my phone started vibrating like a live wire. I didn't have to check the screen. I knew who it was. Riley. Call after call. Followed by messages, one after another like bullets. Asher, what the hell are you doing? If you come back now and apologize, we'll settle this tonight. So you want to fight now? That it? You think this makes you look strong? You're pathetic. Fine. Have it your way. Just don't come crawling back later. I didn't reply. Didn't even open the thread. The driver glanced at me through the rearview mirror. Where to, sir? We passed over the bridge, water glinting below in the streetlights. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the phone. The one Riley and I once had matching versions of. Same color. Same case. Some cheesy engraving on the inside she swore she liked. I rolled down the window. No pause. No drama. I tossed it straight into the river. It disappeared with a soft splash, no ceremony, no echo. Take me to buy a phone, I said. My voice was calm. My heart wasn't racing. And for the first time in years, my hands didn't shake. When I told Zach what happened, he practically doubled over from laughing. I knew it, he said, wiping a tear from the corner of his eye. You've been playing the loyal house pet for years. And for what? You could have been a ruthless CEO with a Maserati and 3 assistants, but no, you picked emotional punching bag instead. I gave him a look. Half smirk, half exhaustion. As usual, Zach's words were laced with poison, but unfortunately, they weren't wrong. I'd had every opportunity to walk away from Riley. But I didn't. Not because I believed in soulmates or second chances. Mostly, I stayed because our families liked the match. Her parents liked me. Mine liked her. Everyone thought it made sense. Everyone except me. Zach clapped a hand on my shoulder, switching to his mock-sage voice. Look, man. Leave the drama behind. Embrace the upgrade. We're gonna be kings of the single life. Wine. Power. Zero obligations. That was Zach. A master of the dramatic pep talk. But if you peeled back the layers, he was the one always getting torn apart in relationships. He gave good advice, just never took it himself. I shook my head. Too late for that. I've already scheduled a blind date. He blinked. Wait, what? Since when? I held up my phone and gave it a casual wave. Just now. New phone. New start. First thing I did. Download a dating app, set up a profile, and make plans. No more begging for love. No more proving my worth. From here on out, I'm not chasing butterflies, I'm securing my legacy. Find a decent woman. Have a child. Protect the Langford name. Love? That's a luxury I can't afford anymore. The next day, I suited up and paid a visit to Milo's school. I asked to speak with his advisor, calm, respectful, direct. When I told her I'd no longer be funding Milo's tuition, and that I wanted my contact information removed from the Guardian section of his records, her eyebrows pulled together in alarm. You're sure? She asked, concern blooming behind her glasses. Milo's situation at home is difficult. Your support has made it possible for him to stay enrolled. I nodded slowly. I know. She hesitated again. Even his living expenses, we were told you've been covering those too. I said simply. I pulled out my phone and swiped to a photo. Milo at the Northbridge Club, sipping something suspiciously expensive, nestled up beside Riley like he belonged in a world he hadn't earned. I turned the screen toward her. Does this look like someone still in need of charity? Her lips pressed into a thin line. She recognized the place instantly. Northbridge wasn't just some hangout spot, it was Langford-owned. A private club for the city's elite. You didn't get in without money, connections, or bloodline. I let out a tired sigh. Look, I don't begrudge anyone a good time. But money doesn't fall out of the sky. If he can afford to live like this now, he clearly doesn't need mine. The advisor stared at the photo, face hardening by the second. Milo was only 18. Just a kid, technically. But already slipping into rooms he had no business in. Already trading futures for the illusion of fast comfort. No wonder his grades have dropped, she murmured. And then, as if something had clicked into place, her entire posture shifted. This semester, Milo applied for one of the low-income student grants, she said quietly. He's in the final review round. Her voice had cooled. I didn't respond. She didn't need me to. She looked down at the photo one last time, then locked her screen and stood. That grant, she said firmly, should go to a student who actually needs it. And just like that, the illusion cracked. One more mask pulled away. One more cleanup handled. No theatrics. No revenge speech. Just truth. After leaving the school, I checked the time and made my way to the cafe where I'd arranged the blind date. She was already there, seated by the window. Strikingly beautiful. Graceful. Long legs, porcelain skin, and the kind of effortless elegance that didn't need filters or good lighting. She was exactly what I'd said I wanted. But the moment I saw her face, my mind stalled. I knew her. Ava. Of course I did. Our families had crossed paths plenty of times over the years. I'd even had dinner with her once, back when I was still with Riley. Ava was Edward Monroe's adopted daughter, Riley's maternal grandfather. And Riley had made sure to keep that little family connection vague, perhaps because standing next to Ava made anyone look like a discount version. She looked me over slowly, coolly, taking her time. No expression flickered across her face. I, on the other hand, was ready to bolt. But before I could come up with an excuse to leave, Ava spoke, her voice smooth and melodic, like a mountain spring that ran cold but clear. So, she said, you and Riley, over? I nodded automatically. She tilted her head, tone light but sharp. Over? Or just on a break? That question shouldn't have made my spine stiffen. But it did. And that's when I realized something, this wasn't just a date. This was an evaluation. I'd always known Ava was in another league. In our business circle, her name carried a weight few could rival. She'd single-handedly rebuilt the Lennox family empire from near collapse to a corporate juggernaut. The Monroe family? They clung to her coattails like distant cousins lucky to share the name. The small ventures Riley and I managed, boutique real estate, mid-range hospitality, felt like lemonade stands in comparison. Sitting across from Ava now, I felt the same instinct a soldier feels before a general. Not attraction. Reverence. Ava sat in silence for a few moments, her gaze steady, unreadable. Then she spoke. I read your profile. I meet all of your listed requirements. I blinked. Wait, what? She stood, smoothing out the front of her dress with quiet poise. Let's go. I stared at her, completely lost. Go where? Her answer landed like a casual announcement, nothing more. Vegas. To get married. She said it the way most people said, let's order lunch. Then, almost as an afterthought, she added, your criteria actually line up quite well with mine. I froze. Every instinct in my body told me this had to be a joke. Marry Ava? Riley's aunt? Legal aunt. But still. I stammered, searching for an escape hatch. I don't think that's really appropriate. Ava turned to look at me, her expression untouched by emotion. Cold. Composed. Unblinking. I swallowed hard and finally spit out the truth. Look, honestly, I was just looking for someone with good genetics to have a kid with. Everything else in the profile was just filler. The silence that followed was thick enough to drown in. Then, calmly, with a glint of something unreadable in her eyes, Ava replied. "So that's the part you care about?" She nodded once, more to herself than to me. "Fair enough. I get a full medical checkup every year, no major concerns. Excellent hormone balance, no hereditary conditions, and a clean record across the board." She smiled faintly. "You'll be satisfied." I blinked. What? "If it helps," she added, tilting her head ever so slightly, "we can schedule a fertility screening. Just to put your mind at ease." I sat there, completely unarmed, as the woman across from me calmly offered me a future, filed, signed, and medically verified. And for the first time since this entire chaotic chapter of my life began, I wasn't sure if I should run or say yes. The next morning, I sat in the back of the car, staring at the marriage certificate in my hands. I still couldn't process it. Just 2 days ago, I was standing in a nightclub being humiliated. And now? Now I was legally married. The driver glanced at me through the rearview mirror. "Home, sir." I rubbed my temples. My mind was fogged, like I'd been awake for 100 hours. "Just, give me a minute," I muttered. Beside me, Ava spoke, calm, cool, like always. "Rivercrest Estates." I turned to her, still trying to catch up. "Why there?" She didn't even blink. "To buy a house. A marital home." Oh. Right. I was married. Outside the window, the city blurred by, like the last 25 years of my life, all speed and confusion and barely remembered choices. And now, I was accelerating straight into something entirely new. Ava's voice cut through the silence again. "Did you take the photo yet?" I looked over. "What?" "The marriage certificate," she said, as if I were the one being slow. "You're not going to post it? Instagram? Announcement? Once you've taken the shot, send it to me." "Right. Yeah. Okay." I snapped a quick picture, hand still slightly unsteady, and uploaded it to Instagram without thinking too hard. Before I could even lower the phone, Ava reached over and took the certificate from my hands like it belonged to her. She slid it neatly into her designer handbag, limited edition, rare as diamonds, and fastened the clasp with a soft click. I couldn't explain it, but something about that moment felt off. Like I'd signed onto a contract I hadn't read the fine print on. The comments came fast. Zach, of course, was first. "You move fast." Then Riley. "Asher, playing hard to get won't work on me. I gave you a chance yesterday, you didn't take it. Don't come crying later. Stupid woman." I didn't hesitate. I blocked her. Clean cut. No hesitation. Let the world catch up. The house was finalized that afternoon. A standalone villa in Rivercrest Estates. Over $20 million, paid in full. Ava's assistant handled all the paperwork while I stood nearby, nodding like some mildly confused bystander. It hit me on the drive back. I had just married a gorgeous billionaire. Huh. I opened Instagram to distract myself, and there it was. Ava's post. A single photo of the villa we just bought. No filters. No angles. The caption? Marital residence. Simple. Direct. Completely on brand for her. The driver pulled up to the City View penthouse, a sleek, ultra-modern tower that practically glowed above the skyline. This was where Ava lived. Alone. She rarely stayed at the Lennox estate anymore. Too far from work, she'd once said. Too crowded with opinions. The elevator ride up was silent, but the second we stepped into the penthouse, she moved like she'd lived there for years. She handed me a glass of water with the same calm authority she'd used to buy a mansion. "The Rivercrest property needs renovations," she said. "In the meantime, stay here. You're free to explore. If you'd like to redecorate the primary suite, feel free to do so." I stood quickly and took the glass with both hands, bowing my head like an idiot. "Thank you, Aunt." Why did I say that? Why did I say that? We barely knew each other. Ava paused, her eyes narrowing slightly. "If I'm not mistaken," she said slowly, "we're married." She set down her tablet. "So unless you're planning to reintroduce a third party into this arrangement, maybe try using wife. Or my name. Right. Wife." That's what she was now. I took a long sip of water I didn't need, trying to gather my thoughts. Meanwhile, my brain was spiraling. What now? What about tonight? What are the rules? Are there rules? And somehow, I swear she felt it, because as she moved toward her desk to pick up some paperwork, she glanced back at me, amused. Almost like she could hear the screaming in my head. She ended the call, placed her phone face down on the marble countertop, and turned toward me. "You look nervous," she said, voice calm as ever. I nodded, clearing my throat. "A little. Yeah." In my head, I'd built up this moment like a scene from a film. I imagined her offering me reassurance in that perfectly measured voice, telling me there was no rush, that we could wait, that she'd respect my pace until I was ready. That's what women like Ava were supposed to do in movies. But real life? Ava slipped off her glasses, those sleek, no-nonsense frames she wore while signing million-dollar deals, and walked over to me. Without a word, she reached for my tie and pulled. "We should get familiar," she said. The lights went off. Then she was on top of me, straddling me like she owned the moment, and maybe she did. The scent of her perfume, clean, expensive, quietly intoxicating, wrapped around me like silk. She leaned in, her voice a soft murmur against my ear. "Asher. Kiss me." And I did, like I was following a direct order. Because in that moment, I was. She tasted clean. Soft. Ridiculously sweet. I remembered someone once mentioning she didn't smoke, didn't drink, didn't even touch caffeine most days. Her lifestyle was strict: early mornings, green smoothies, measured calories. Even at corporate dinners, she never touched the wine. Kissing her felt like I didn't belong in the same tax bracket. And yet, this woman, who moved through boardrooms like she was bulletproof, made the tiniest sounds when she kissed, soft, delicate little noises like she was surprised to be touched at all. High heels. Cold tone. Flawless posture. But in my arms? She whimpered like a kitten begging not to be left alone. More than once she tried to slow me down, her hands pressing against my chest. And every time, I tried to stop. I really did. But I couldn't. Not with her wrapped around me like that. Not with her saying my name like it meant something. The night of our wedding, we may as well have been trying to conceive a child right then and there. By the time I finally stopped, heart pounding, muscles aching, dawn was creeping through the edges of the blackout curtains. Somewhere in that dazed, breathless haze, a thought floated through my head. Ava must really want a baby. That had to be it, right? The intensity. The urgency. No way someone went that hard just for fun. And judging by the way she clung to me in the final hour, I had to assume I'd passed the test. God, I hoped so. I didn't want her thinking I was still some awkward kid Riley dragged around like a prop. When I finally woke up, it was to the vibration of my phone, non-stop. I rubbed the sleep from my eyes, swiped it open. Hundreds of notifications. Texts from Zach. A handful of group chats buzzing like angry hives. A few friends who'd clearly just woken up to the news. And, of course, the most were from my parents. Harold and Marion Langford. Two people who liked order, predictability, and pre-approved daughters-in-law. Problem, came Ava's voice, smooth and lazy. She stepped out of the bathroom in nothing but a white robe, her hair slightly damp, her lips a natural crimson that still looked like sin. I tried to answer, but my brain betrayed me. Because suddenly it wasn't morning anymore, it was last night, and Ava's body was arching beneath me, and I flushed. Hard. Face lit up like a warning sign. Ava quirked a brow. You're blushing like I caught you watching something dirty. She walked over and brushed her fingers across my forehead, checking my temperature like I might be sick. I waved her off. No, it's just. I don't know how to explain this to my parents. They'd probably already called Riley. Put two and two together. Found out my wife wasn't the Monroe they were expecting. I was going to be interrogated like a criminal. Ava, unfazed, reached for her phone. Then let's go explain it. I blinked. What? She glanced at me, calm as ever. Get dressed. We'll go see them together. The meeting went, shockingly well. Even I didn't expect Harold and Marion to like her that much. Ava handled them like a seasoned diplomat, graceful, articulate, completely in control. And when they asked how we knew each other, she smiled without missing a beat and said, "We've known each other for quite some time." Quite some time. I nearly choked on my coffee. We'd met maybe 4 times before the blind date, and 2 of those had been over dim sum with Riley. But my parents didn't bat an eye. Ava was composed, elegant, intelligent. She looked like someone who read financial reports for fun and raised orchids on weekends. Beautiful face, perfect manners, 0 visible flaws. It didn't take long for Harold and Marion to fall under her spell. As for Riley, they weren't blind. They'd seen her spiral, year after year, party after party, tabloid mention after tabloid mention. Once upon a time, she may have been the ideal daughter-in-law. But somewhere between the champagne brunches and the midnight club appearances, she'd disqualified herself. She was everywhere, and with everyone. I used to pretend I didn't notice. Now I couldn't think about it without feeling sick. In hindsight, I'd spent years looking away. Now I couldn't stop looking, and I hated what I saw. So when my parents pulled Ava aside for a little chat, and returned with starry eyes and the brilliant idea that we should have 2 kids in 3 years, I shouldn't have been surprised. And Ava? She smiled sweetly and said, "Of course, Mom and Dad. I'll do my best." Mom and Dad? Wait, who was the son here again? Wasn't I the one supposed to be giving her children? Something felt deeply upside down. And yet, a week later, I moved into Ava's penthouse. Just like she asked. Or, more accurately, just like she planned. I thought it would be awkward. After all, we were married, but barely knew each other. But surprisingly, it wasn't awkward at all. Living with Ava turned out to be easy. Comfortable, even. She could cook, really cook, not just toast and eggs. She played video games with me after work, curled up on the couch like we'd been doing this for years. And every evening, without fail, she carved out time to sit with me, either over wine or spreadsheets, offering quiet, focused advice on how to actually run a company like a Langford. She never talked down to me. She wasn't trying to outshine me. She was building something, with me. Of course, not everything was perfect. Sometimes I'd wake up, bleary-eyed and half-dreaming, roll over to see her impossibly beautiful face on the pillow next to mine, and instinctively mutter, "Aunt." Ava never said anything when it happened. But I died a little inside every time. Elsewhere, in another part of the city, the party never stopped. A different club. Not Northbridge. Riley's clique had relocated, dragging their chaos with them. The lights were lower, the music louder. Her girlfriends were draped over new men, drink in one hand, the other tangled in someone's collar. Bottle service. Laughter. Flashing lights and glitter. And in the middle of it all stood Milo. He'd dressed carefully, tailored shirt, designer sneakers, a brand new Rolex glinting on his wrist. His fingers fidgeted with the band, clearly unsure if he looked like he belonged. The Rolex, of course, had been a gift from Riley. Ever since Northbridge Club started charging them like everyone else, the crew had decided to take their business elsewhere. Apparently, it was humiliating to have to pay for their own fun. As for Milo? Without Riley's arm wrapped around him, he wouldn't have made it past the velvet rope. After listening to Milo's nervous explanation, Riley took a long, deliberate drag from her cigarette. She exhaled slowly, blowing a thick plume of smoke directly into Milo's face. The cloud hit him hard, his eyes squeezed shut, blinking rapidly as he waved it away. "You're saying Asher cut you off?" she asked, voice flat, almost amused. Milo nodded. "Yeah. Right after he saw me that night. He stopped the tuition payments, and my living expenses too. Riley, I was wondering if you could." He trailed off, biting his lower lip. The rest of the sentence clearly caught in his throat. Riley smirked. "If I could support you?" Milo hesitated, then nodded again, gaze lowered. Would that be okay? He'd been her companion, on and off. A boy toy with a pretty face and the good sense to be quiet when it counted. He knew Riley had a soft spot for him, or at least, a fondness. But he was still in high school, and Riley had drawn a firm line. Too young to touch. Milo had spent nights wondering if that would have changed, if only he weren't still in school. If he'd gotten further with her, if he'd made himself irreplaceable. Maybe then she would have kept him. Upgraded him from plaything to partner. Riley tilted her head, giving him a slow once-over. "I'm not a charity," she said with a hint of a smile. The words landed like a slap. Milo's face crumpled for just a moment. He blinked hard, his voice cracking. "That's not what I meant. I'll pay you back. I swear, once I graduate, I'll work hard. I just..." His hands clenched at his sides. Eyes glassy. Begging, but trying not to look like it. That's when Tessa wandered over, drink in hand, catching the tail end of their exchange. "Asher's still pissed?" she asked casually. She glanced at Milo, then back at Riley. "I mean, come on. He's never stayed mad this long. Back then, even when you pushed him too far, he'd disappear for a few days, then show up again with flowers." Tessa sipped from her glass, looking genuinely puzzled. "To be honest, this time it feels kinda harsh." She paused, lowering her voice with a conspiratorial tone. "You sure he's not just trying to mess with your head?" Because Tessa, like Riley, still hadn't figured it out. This wasn't a tantrum. It was a goodbye. "He's mad at you," Tessa scoffed, crossing her arms. "So he cuts off your funding? What is that, some kind of punishment by association?" She rolled her eyes. "That's not just petty. That's cruel. He's practically shoving you off a cliff." Across from her, Milo lowered his head again, tears slipping quietly down his cheeks. "I should have explained it to Mr. Langford," he whispered. "It's my fault. I didn't mean to hurt anyone." Tessa's heart cracked. She had a soft spot for beautiful boys in trouble, and Milo, with his doe eyes and trembling voice, was the picture of helpless charm. "Oh, honey, no," she said, scooting closer. "This isn't on you. Asher's just dramatic as hell. Always has been. One minute he's fine, the next he's ghosting everyone over some imagined offense. Honestly? Exhausting." She turned to Riley, her tone sharpening with sisterly frustration. "And you, don't you dare forgive him too quickly this time. Seriously, Riley. Men are like dogs. The more you spoil them, the more they think they own the whole damn yard. Riley didn't respond right away. Instead, she picked up her phone and coolly transferred a sum of money to Milo. When his phone buzzed, Milo glanced at the screen, then back at her, eyes wide, hopeful. Riley gave a soft, lazy smile. "Don't get the wrong idea." Her voice was smooth, but cool. "I'm not supporting you," she said. "Asher only cut you off because he was jealous. So until he comes crawling back and apologizes, I'll just cover his end. Temporarily." The logic was twisted, but no one in the room flinched. Even Tessa nodded in agreement, sipping her drink like Riley had just offered a TED Talk on modern relationships. What none of them realized, what even Tessa hadn't picked up on, was that Riley knew exactly what she was doing. She agreed with Tessa, sure. Asher was annoying. High-strung. Prone to storms. But Riley also understood something no one else in the room did. He was hers. The flings? The boys? The party scenes? Just distractions. Background noise. She could play all she wanted, but in her mind, the ending was already written. When she was done, when the thrill wore off, when it was time to settle, she'd marry Asher. Because in Riley's world, the difference between a plaything and a husband was clear. And Asher Langford, whether he liked it or not, was her property. Still, Tessa had a point. This time, she wouldn't give in so easily. Let him sweat. The thought made Riley's fingers itch. Ignoring the way Milo's hopeful eyes dimmed beside her, she picked up her phone and fired off a message to me. "Asher, are you done sulking yet? Grow up." But the moment she hit send, a bold red exclamation point appeared next to the message. Message failed. Her expression faltered. Tessa leaned over, curious. "What's wrong?" Then she saw it. "Oh my God. He blocked you?" Riley's jaw tightened. Tessa blinked, stunned. Wait, Asher's actually mad? The realization landed with the weight of a slap. For a second, Riley just stared at her screen. Then she began calling. Once. Twice. 5 times in a row. Voicemail. 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 Every number she had, every platform she tried, nothing went through. Every call failed. Every DM bounced. Every inbox was sealed. Asher Langford had locked every door. Milo shifted nervously, voice barely audible. "Maybe it's because of me. I should go apologize to Mr. Langford." "No." Riley's voice cracked like a whip. Sharp. Dismissive. "Apologize? He should be apologizing to me. What the hell would you apologize for?" Milo shrank back, lips pressed together. She sat there a moment longer, staring at her phone like it had personally betrayed her. Then, slowly, calmly, she exhaled and added me to her own block list. There. Balanced. Still, it didn't feel like enough. She snatched Tessa's phone from her hand and typed furiously. "Asher, you seriously blocked me? You think I won't get mad about that?" She hit send. Another red exclamation mark. Tessa whistled. Wow. Petty and thorough. She reclaimed her phone, shaking her head. "He's being immature. You ask me? Time to make him pay." Hard. Riley didn't answer. She just tossed the phone back toward Tessa without looking. Then turned to Milo. Her eyes gleamed, not with affection, but with something colder. Calculated. "You want to date me?" Milo blinked. "What? Relationship. Me. You. Interested?" His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Riley's lip curled into a smile, dark, dangerous, not quite sane. If he wants to throw a tantrum, fine. Let's make this fun. She leaned back in her chair like a queen issuing a decree. Let's see who breaks first. Milo's heart was pounding. Yes, he said, barely above a whisper. And just like that, Riley made it official. She and Milo were together. Or something close enough to it. To ensure maximum impact, she posted about it on Instagram, 2 carefully staged photos and a caption vague enough to be denied but obvious enough to make sure I saw it. Of course, Zach saw it first. He ranted in our group chat for a solid 2 hours, voice notes and all. Called her delusional. Pathetic. Said she was embarrassing herself by flaunting a high schooler like a designer bag bought on clearance. Zach had a talent for this sort of thing. He could dismantle someone's entire personality with surgical precision. Eventually, he forwarded me the post. I opened it. Looked at it. Felt nothing. There was a time I could have listed everything I admired about Riley, her laugh, her drive, the way she could walk into a room and make everyone orbit her. I'd followed those flickers of charm for nearly a decade. But after the break, they'd dimmed. Faded. Disappeared. Now, all I saw was noise. A woman burning down her own house to get my attention. And for the life of me, I couldn't understand why I'd ever wanted to spend my future tethered to someone who mistook chaos for charisma. Just as that thought crossed my mind, a hand slid in and plucked the phone from mine. I looked up. Ava stood beside me, her gaze lowered as she studied the glowing screen. The post. The caption. The performance. After a few seconds, she looked up at me. Her voice was light. Too light. Missing her already? She asked, lips curving into something between a smirk and a warning. I shook my head instantly, like a kid denying he broke the lamp. This past month had taught me a lot about Ava. The more relaxed her smile, the more danger swirled behind her eyes. There was nothing soft about that quiet. And nothing safe about that calm. I opened my mouth to explain, but didn't get the chance. Ava pulled me in before I could speak. Afterwards, she lay sprawled across my chest, scrolling her phone, calm and radiant in that casual way that made her impossible to read. What plans do you have coming up? She asked lightly. Plans? I blinked, mind still rebooting. I'm supposed to go on a trip with Zach. We planned it a while back, can't really cancel. She nodded, eyes still on her screen. Did you book the tickets yet? No. Ava locked her phone, then glanced over at me. Tomorrow's Edward's birthday. Come with me? My body tensed. Edward. Riley's grandfather. Wherever he was, Riley wouldn't be far behind. And neither would her parents. It didn't take a genius to guess what kind of scene that could turn into, especially now that I was married to Ava. My hesitation must have shown, because Ava arched a brow. What's the problem? I forced a smile. Nothing. A beat passed. Okay, I said. I'll come. Because eventually, I'd have to face them. And because a man doesn't get to back down every time it's uncomfortable. The birthday celebration was no small affair. It wasn't just family. Anyone with ties to the Lennox Empire showed up, business partners, shareholders, political friends, old money, new money, and plenty of people with nothing but ambition and a good suit. Naturally, the Langfords were invited too. Ava had clearly prepped Edward in advance. When we arrived, her hand laced through mine, both of us dressed like walking headlines. He didn't even flinch. No surprise. No scandal. Just a long, thoughtful look, and then a smile. He handed me a large, wrapped gift. Heavy. And then, with a sigh that seemed older than the room itself, he said. Well, it's Riley's loss. No judgment. Just resignation. The kind that only came from a man who'd seen everything, twice. Riley arrived halfway through the evening. She was laughing when she walked in, draped in red, flanked by 2 cousins, hair curled just right for the cameras. But the moment her eyes landed on us, Ava's hand resting lightly on my arm, our posture relaxed, intimate, unchallenged, she froze mid-step. Her smile collapsed. Her body stiffened. Ava, dressed in a tailored, slate-gray evening gown that clung to her like shadow and silk, didn't flinch. She looked every inch the woman Riley would never become, calm, composed, and already in control of the outcome. She noticed Riley's hesitation. And spoke first. "Well? No greeting?" Riley clenched her jaw. Her voice came strained. "Aunt." Then she looked to me, eyes tight with disbelief. "Asher, what are you doing?" I didn't look away. "Wishing Edward a happy birthday." She stepped closer, fingers wrapping tight around my wrist. "This is a joke, right?" she hissed. "You're angry at me, fine, but dragging my aunt into it? What is this, some kind of twisted revenge fantasy?" "Riley," Ava said sharply. She reached forward and peeled Riley's hand off my arm, her grip firm and cold. Her tone never rose. "Watch your tone," she said. "Asher is my husband now. You will speak to him with respect." Riley staggered back a step, like someone had slapped her across the face in front of an audience. "Married?" she whispered. "You two, actually got married?" Ava tilted her head. "You saw his Instagram, didn't you?" Then she turned, fingers weaving through mine like nothing had happened, and led me away without another glance. We walked several paces before I looked back. Riley was still standing in the same spot, frozen. Like her mind hadn't quite caught up to the reality unraveling in front of her. I barely had a second to study her expression before a hand gently turned my face forward again. "Don't look at her like that," Ava said, her voice soft but cutting. "It irritates me." After the party, Zach texted to say he'd booked our tickets. Destination, Switzerland. Originally, it was supposed to be a guy's trip. Just the 2 of us. But now? He bought 2 tickets. One with my name. And one with Ava's. "Call it a honeymoon," he said. Fair enough. It was starting to feel like one. Ava and I did everything we said we would in Switzerland. We stayed in an ice hotel, wandered through quiet, snow-covered villages, and, of course, we went skiing. It was my first time. Hers, not so much. She'd done it before, years ago, and picked it up again with ease. But the altitude, the cold, the strain, it caught up to her faster than expected. She fell hard. Twisted her ankle badly. I didn't fare any better. I went down halfway through the beginner slope and heard a distinct crack in my left leg. The hospital visit was inevitable. The cast was annoying. But the real shock came from the doctor, who gave me a look of barely contained contempt before delivering the news. "She's pregnant," he said, coldly. "And you brought her skiing?" As her husband, that's incredibly irresponsible. Pregnant? It hit me like a freight train. I looked down at Ava's stomach, still perfectly flat, not a curve out of place, and struggled to connect the word pregnant with what I was seeing. But the math made sense. We'd been married for over a month. We never used protection. We both went into this marriage with the idea of having a child. This wasn't some accident. It was just, real now. Alive. Growing. Inside her. Zach, naturally, lost his mind with excitement. Within 2 hours of hearing the news, he'd already drafted a list of 20 potential baby names and started ranking them based on emotional gravitas. Ava, on the other hand, was not in a joking mood. "You are never going skiing again," she said, eyes sharp, voice clipped. It was my idea, of course. I'd been talking about skiing for years. Ava just agreed to come because she thought I'd enjoy it. Now here we were, her ankle swollen, my leg fractured, and a doctor scolding me like I'd left a toddler on the freeway. I felt a pang of guilt and nodded. Okay. I won't. The important thing is the baby's okay. Ava stared at me for a second. Then her voice rose, not in fear, but frustration. I'm not talking about the baby. Her hands balled at her sides. I'm talking about you. You're the one who got hurt worse. You're the one who's supposed to be careful. Don't you get it? She was really angry. Not for show. Not for control. Because she cared. And suddenly, the cold outside didn't matter as much as the warmth, sharp, fierce, unshakable, radiating from this woman beside me. It was the first time I'd ever seen Ava truly angry. Not the playful, teasing kind of angry she showed in bed. Not the sighing, eye-roll version when I left my socks in the wrong place. This was real anger. Frustrated. Human. Sharp. And yet, I wasn't scared. Because all I could hear echoing in my head was that one line. I'm talking about you. My heart was still stuck there. I looked up at her. Didn't you marry me for the kid? It came out quiet. Almost cautious. Because let's face it, I wasn't naive enough to believe she'd fallen for me in a month. Ava Lennox didn't do whirlwind emotions. She made decisions. Strategic, elegant, intentional. Ava let out a breath, half a laugh, half a scoff. She looked almost offended. The kid, she repeated, arching a brow. Then she leaned down, lifted my chin with 2 fingers, and made me look her dead in the eyes. Her voice dropped, cool and dangerous and real. Asher, let me be very clear, she said slowly. The baby is just the rope I tied around your wrist. What I wanted from the start, was you. Then she kissed me. Not sweet. Not soft. Her kiss was fierce, full of teeth, heat, and something almost primal. Like she was claiming territory she already owned. If we hadn't been thinking about the baby, it would have gone further. Much further. But we stopped. Barely. For the right reasons. And still, my pulse didn't calm for minutes. We lay there in silence, my body cooling, heart still racing, when Ava's voice cut through the quiet like a thread pulled loose. Do you remember the first time we met? I blinked, caught off guard. I'd been laughing, mid-conversation with Zach, completely unaware she was even watching me. But that question stopped everything. And suddenly, I wasn't just listening. I was remembering. I remembered. I must have still been in high school at the time. Riley had brought me along to her grandfather Edward's estate for his birthday. It was one of those grand, old-money celebrations where business and family blurred together. A mix of suits and silverware, and an ocean of unfamiliar faces. Edward had invited a lot of his business associates, and many had brought their teenage children. Kids our age, dressed up like adults, trying to act like they belonged in that world. And then there was Ava. Edward had introduced her to the group and asked everyone to be polite, to call her Aunt Ava, out of respect. Only Riley obeyed. The other girls paused, looked at Ava, tall, composed, maybe only a few years older than us, and instantly resisted. She looks our age. Why should we call her Aunt? Yeah, aren't aunts supposed to be, like, old? Why's she so quiet? Is she mute or something? I heard she's adopted. The snide comments piled up like glass splinters. And I remember standing there, watching it all happen, the subtle cruelty of privileged girls testing the boundaries of their world. I didn't like it. Langford or not, I'd been raised to recognize dignity. And what they were doing wasn't teasing, it was dismissal. So I stepped in. I don't even remember exactly what I said, just that I made it known they should shut up. That they were embarrassing themselves. That names like Lennox and Langford meant something, and that kind of behavior didn't belong under either roof. At the time, I thought I was defending Riley's aunt. Just doing the decent thing, standing by her side. I never imagined what it meant to Ava. But now, years later, she looked me in the eyes and said it, quiet and clear. That day, when you stood in front of me and told them to stop. That was the moment I started liking you. I stared at her, speechless. All this time. She'd carried that memory like a talisman, silent and hidden. Back then, I thought I was just being polite. Maybe a little arrogant. Certainly not heroic. But to her, it was everything. Because no one else had. And now she was sitting in front of me, my wife, carrying our child, telling me she had chosen me not for strategy, not for bloodlines or appearances, but because I'd once looked injustice in the eye and said no. I looked up at her again. All these years. And I never saw it coming. We hadn't seen each other that often growing up. And whenever we did meet, Ava always wore that same expression, calm, distant, borderline cold. She kept to herself, flipping through company reports while the rest of us were still figuring out college applications. Everything about her screamed executive. Unreachable. Untouchable. Which made her confession all the more surreal. I studied her face. Then how'd you even know I was on that dating app? Ava raised a brow, like the answer was obvious. I was already added on every app you had. Of course she was. Somehow, her saying that didn't feel creepy, it just felt like her. Efficient. Discreet. Strategic. But now that I knew how long she'd felt something for me, the knowledge settled differently. Softened things. Shifted things. I started seeing her less as the woman I married out of timing and convenience, and more as the woman who had quietly, patiently, chosen me. After her fall, the doctor told us the pregnancy was stable, but the impact had unsettled things. Nothing dangerous, but still. We decided to stay in Switzerland for a while. Let things calm down. She needed rest. And the quiet mountain air helped. I, on the other hand, bounced back and forth between San Francisco and the Alps. The Langford company still needed managing, and I wasn't about to let my father fight those boardroom battles alone. 2 months passed. Ava's belly still hadn't changed much, still flat, barely noticeable. But she noticed me. The weight loss. The dark circles. The wear and tear from constantly crossing time zones. You don't need to keep flying back and forth, she said one night, her hand resting lightly on mine. I hired help here. I'll be fine. I nodded. Then booked my next flight anyway. I wasn't missing this. Not her. Not the baby. Not this time. By early March, spring had crept back into San Francisco. After nearly 6 months of pregnancy, Ava was finally starting to show. Her movements had slowed just a little. She slept more. She let me fuss over her. Before we left, I helped her bundle up, layers upon layers until she looked like a designer dumpling. And still, I wasn't satisfied. I added another coat. Just in case. At the door, I hovered. Are you warm enough? Do you need one more? Ava glanced down at herself, 5, maybe 6 layers deep, and said nothing. Her silence said everything. When we landed, the driver was already waiting. Without a word, he took us straight to Rivercrest Estates. Back home. Together. The house has been ready for a while, I told her as we stepped inside. Everything's moved in. Your things, mine, it's all here. Ava nodded. Good. The place looked exactly like we'd envisioned. Every room bore our fingerprints, textures, tones, furniture choices. Not a cold, catalog-perfect mansion, but a home. Push open any door, and you'd see something I loved. Something she remembered. It hit me harder than I expected. For years, I'd lived like a placeholder, orbiting Riley, absorbing her moods, shrinking myself to fit her chaos. Now, here I was. Standing in a house built for two, not one. Built with me in mind. And Ava, quiet, precise, fiercely loyal Ava, had seen to all of it. A soft warmth spread in my chest. I had never imagined this kind of peace. Never thought I'd have something that felt like this. When we started, all I wanted was a child. A next generation Langford. But now? Now I wasn't so sure that was all I wanted. Because after these months, after the way she looked at me, fought for me, protected me, I wanted it all. The child. The home. Her. That's when my phone buzzed. I picked it up, expecting something routine. But it was a name I hadn't seen in a while. Milo. Mr. Langford, the semester's started, and I still haven't paid my tuition. I know you understand my situation. I'm asking if you could help me again, just this once. I swear I'll pay you back. For a second, I just stared at the screen. If he hadn't messaged, I probably wouldn't have thought of him again. After all, I'd cut Riley off completely. But Zach still talked to one of her friends, and every now and then, I'd hear things. Milo's living expenses? All covered by Riley. Lavishly. She didn't know what normal students lived on. So she gave him $15,000 a month. 6 months. Nearly $100,000. And now here he was, begging for tuition. Again. No savings. No foresight. No shame. I typed slowly. I thought I made myself clear. I will no longer be supporting you. Your life is no longer my concern. Please don't contact me again. I hit send. Then deleted the thread. Deleted him. No hesitation. No guilt. I had a family now. And some bridges didn't deserve rebuilding. When it came to Milo, I didn't hate him. Not really. Maybe his character had flaws, but Riley had shaped plenty of those. She fed him attention, money, and delusions. Gave him enough rope and then pretended to be surprised when he used it. Still, if they hadn't ended up together, if she hadn't pushed me so far away, I never would have stumbled into Ava's world. Into this. Now, all I wanted was simple, for Ava to give birth safely, and for us to fall in love afterwards, the kind of slow, quiet romance that grows when no one's pretending. That night, when I came home, the house was quiet. On the kitchen counter, there was a half-eaten piece of cake. Just sitting there on a plate, fork still wedged in the sponge. It was Ava's, obviously. We'd lived together long enough that this didn't feel weird anymore. I picked it up, took a bite without thinking. Not bad. Actually, pretty good. Just as I was taking another forkful, Ava stepped out of the bedroom, barefoot, hair slightly messy, robe tied loose around her waist. She paused when she saw me. Her gaze flicked to the plate in my hand. Good? She asked, voice calm. Yeah, I said, chewing. Not bad at all. She nodded slowly. I thought so too. I swallowed, grabbed another bite, and asked casually, where'd you get it? Ava leaned against the doorframe. It wasn't store-bought, she said. Dr. Theo brought it over. I froze. Dr. Theo. The personal physician I'd paid a fortune to fly in from Germany. Charming, young. Smiled too easily. Had a habit of bringing Ava low-sugar desserts after checkups. Oh, and he bakes now? Great. I dropped the fork with dramatic flair and shoved the plate away. Actually? It's awful. Ava arched a brow. You just said it was good. I was being polite, I said flatly. It tastes like drywall with frosting. Her lips twitched. You're jealous. No, I'm not. You are. I just don't trust doctors who flirt through pastry. She walked past me, picked up the discarded plate, and took a bite. Well, she said after swallowing, I think he's a better baker than he is a doctor. I stared at her. She stared back. A long silence. Then I muttered, You're not allowed to think he's funny. Ava smiled, slow, wicked, beautiful. And I knew, in that moment, she was falling in love with me. Even if she wasn't going to admit it yet. The next day, Ava and I went to visit my parents. They already knew she was pregnant, of course. But for the past 6 months, Ava had been in Switzerland, and every time they offered to fly over, I found an excuse to shut it down. Now that we were back, there was no more hiding. When we left their house, our car was bursting with gifts, boxes of herbs, tonics, vitamins, jars of God knows what. The entire back seat looked like a mobile apothecary. We hadn't brought a driver, so I was the one lugging every carefully wrapped item into the trunk while Ava stood nearby, sipping a juice, smiling at my effort like she was watching a well-trained show pony. That smile was dangerous. It made the ache in my arms almost worth it. Then, behind me, someone called my name. Asher. The voice cut through the quiet like a blade. I turned. And there she was. Riley. Standing a few yards away, frozen mid-step, her eyes locked on Ava's belly. The bump was showing now, soft but undeniable, even beneath the cozy layers of cashmere Ava had on. Riley stared like she'd seen a ghost. She took a few steps forward, then a few more, faster now, almost running. By the time she reached us, she was out of breath, flushed with disbelief. What is this? She demanded, eyes wide. Asher, what is this? Her hand shot out, reaching toward Ava, clearly intending to pull at the fabric, to confirm what she was already seeing. Ava stood still, expression unreadable. But I moved without thinking. I stepped between them, shielding Ava with my arm. My voice dropped, cool and firm. Riley, she's pregnant. Watch yourself. Riley blinked, stunned. But I didn't move. Didn't flinch. Because this time, I wasn't anyone's fallback plan. I was someone's husband. And I had a family to protect. Riley's gaze shifted to Ava. But this time, she didn't utter a respectful "aunt." Instead, she turned to me, eyes bloodshot, voice trembling. Asher, you cheated on me? I stared at her, then laughed. Cold. Short. Cheated? On you? What are you even talking about? There's nothing between us. Then, casually, I reached over and took the milk tea from Ava's hand. You promised me you'd only drink a third. Riley's breath caught in her throat. The easy intimacy between us, our small, ordinary gestures, cut deeper than any insult. Her voice cracked. We have nothing between us. I was your girlfriend. You disappeared for 6 months, and now you're with her? From afar, she'd seen me first. That was why she ran. She hadn't expected this. Not this scene. Not us. She had asked Edward, of course. And he had confirmed it, yes, Asher and Ava were married. But she'd assumed it was some kind of stunt. Some cold, movie script arrangement. A petty little game meant to provoke her. What she never imagined was this. Ava, visibly pregnant. Me, by her side. Not just with her. Protecting her. Loving her. The sight knocked the air from Riley's lungs. Her world tilted, spun, collapsed. Asher Langford, the boy she'd always considered hers by default. The boy who had waited, who had yielded, who had followed her lead. Was now someone else's husband. And they were having a baby. Her mind reeled. In those long, Petty nights when she'd stubbornly refused to reach out, convinced he'd eventually crawl back. What had he been doing? He had been kissing someone else. Holding someone else. Building a life with someone else. They had touched in ways she never dared. Whispered words she never earned. And that someone else was Ava. Her aunt. Her rival. Her shadow. Jealousy wasn't the word. It was something darker. Something that spread like wildfire through her chest, consuming every rational thought. It clawed at her ribs. Choked her breath. Left her raw, exposed, gutted. And above all, it hurt. I looked Riley straight in the eye. Wasn't Milo your boyfriend? Her lips parted, but no words came. No, she finally whispered. But the words were weak. Unconvincing. That wasn't how it was supposed to be. She had never liked Milo. Not really. It was all just a game. A childish tactic to make me jealous. To push me. To test me. Even the money she'd given him, nearly $10,000 every month, wasn't about Milo. It was about me. A show of defiance. Of independence. Of punishment. I don't care about any of that, I said, cutting her off coldly. And don't twist things. You were the one who cheated first. We were done long before that. I even posted about the wedding on my account. I didn't hide anything from you. Riley flinched. No, he hadn't hidden it. The pictures were there. Public. Real. But she never believed it. Not until now. She had always thought he was bluffing. Thought it was just a phase, an immature tantrum. She told herself, he'll come back. He always comes back. After all, they'd known each other forever. They'd been entangled for years. You don't just sever something like that, not cleanly, not so easily. So even when she saw those posts, even when she heard whispers about his new marriage, she held fast to the idea that it was just noise. That it was all pretend. That he still belonged to her. But now she had seen Ava. Pregnant. Glowing. By his side. And they had already driven away. Gone, just like that. She stood there, stunned and alone. As the truth came crashing down around her. Pulling her under like a riptide. The panic surged, wave after wave. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't move. He wasn't hers anymore. He never would be again. Elsewhere, Milo was being called in for a third conversation with the dean. It was nearly a month into the semester. And he still hadn't paid his tuition. The school had been covering it for him temporarily, fronting the cost. I'm sorry, Professor. Please, just give me a little more time, Milo pleaded, his voice tight with anxiety. He was desperate. His expenses had ballooned over the past few months. He'd spent recklessly, living well beyond his means. And now, every dollar Riley sent went straight to paying off debt. There was nothing left for tuition. Not even for his basic living expenses. It was already time for this month's allowance. And Riley hadn't sent anything. That thought sent a jolt through him. He quickly looked up. Professor, has the low-income student grant opened up for applications this year? Last year, he'd already received the forms by this time. But the professor simply looked at him. With an expression Milo couldn't quite read. It's already closed, the professor said. What? Milo shot upright in his seat, panicked. But I haven't even. The professor cut him off. You no longer meet the qualifications. So I awarded the spot to another student. Milo's heart pounded. What do you mean I don't qualify? I was approved last year. The professor's tone was calm but firm. Mr. Langford showed me photos of you entering and exiting the Northbridge Club, he said. That's a luxury club. High-end. Exclusive. And that alone was enough reason for him to withdraw his support. After that, Milo heard nothing. The professor's voice faded into white noise. Like a radio signal slowly vanishing. His stomach twisted. It wasn't just the loss of a grant. It wasn't just the debt. It was the truth. The realization that the person he thought would always back him, had let him go. Langford was done with him. And so was Riley. A flash of venom sparked in Milo's eyes. It was bad enough that Asher had cut off his financial support. But to go behind his back and get his low-income grant revoked? That was vicious. Truly cruel. But for now, he had more urgent things to deal with. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Riley, it's me. I've just started the semester, and I haven't paid tuition yet. I also haven't gotten this month's living expenses. The voice on the other end cut him off, ice cold. What does that have to do with me? Milo froze. Riley's tone held nothing, no warmth, no hesitation. I must have been out of my mind to use you to piss him off. Don't flatter yourself, we were never a thing. And from now on, don't contact me again. Click. The line went dead. That was Riley. At her core, she'd never really seen Milo as anything more than an amusement. She'd tolerated him when she was bored, used him as a toy to kill time. But now? He wasn't even worth a second thought. Milo clenched his jaw, his lip caught between his teeth until it nearly bled. The dial tone rang endlessly in his ears, like a taunt. Fury surged through him, hot, mindless, suffocating. Asher. It was always Asher. Why did that man have to be so petty? Why did he take everything? And leave Milo with nothing? Why did Asher get to have the family money, the power, the girl, and now even a child? Why did he get to be loved? Milo's knuckles whitened as he gripped the phone. He hated him. He hated them both. Then, as if remembering something, his eyes darkened. A thought flickering in his mind like a lit match held to gasoline. That photo. The one Asher posted on Instagram, the one showing Ava's pregnant belly. Milo's eyes narrowed, cruel intent slowly unfurling in their depths. If his life was crumbling to pieces, why should theirs stay perfect? This world wasn't fair. But he could make it hurt. He tapped through his contacts, then selected a number. Someone he'd met at the club. A thug. A lowlife. The kind of person who knew exactly how to make problems disappear. I picked up the call, and as I listened to what the guy on the other end was telling me, I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Has he lost his damn mind? I muttered. What is this, a movie? Did he binge too many gangster flicks? He tried to hire a biker gang to run Ava and me off the road? Not to kill us, just to kill the baby? I pressed the phone tighter against my ear. You got it recorded, right? Yeah, the guy replied. I recorded everything. Of course he did. No one in their right mind would take a job like that unless they had a death wish, or were the kind of trash who didn't care about jail time. Turns out, this guy had just been running his mouth at the club, boasting that he'd killed someone before. Total bullshit, obviously. But Milo, the idiot, had bought every word. He'd actually approached him and asked if he'd take out Asher Langford. What a joke. Everyone in this city knew the Langford name. That man's entire business? Still breathing because the Langfords allowed it to. So yeah, no way in hell he was risking everything for some desperate kid. Instead, he ran straight to me, practically tripping over himself to rat Milo out. Call the cops, I said flatly. Ava stood next to me, her expression icy. He's still just a student, she said darkly. And he hasn't paid yet, the biker didn't take the job. Nothing's happened, so legally, he won't face anything serious. She was right. Milo hadn't transferred the money. The guy hadn't moved. There was no attempt to charge, just a sick conversation, recorded. I nodded and pulled her closer by the waist. But I've also heard, I said slowly, watching her face, that he's been dabbling in drugs. Ava's eyes gleamed coldly. Then even if we don't bury him, I added, the drugs will. She gave a sharp, merciless laugh. Serves him right. I unlocked my phone and started scrolling again. There were still a few things left to clean up. Lately, we'd been talking about having a proper wedding. I wanted to plan it myself, start to finish, so I'd been deep into Pinterest boards and planning blogs for weeks now. After work, Ava would curl up next to me on the couch and scroll through ideas with me. The more we talked about it, the more real it became. We had settled on next month. But one evening, she looked down at her belly, then up at me, a hint of worry in her eyes. My belly's already pretty big, she said softly. What if I don't look good in the dress? I grinned. I already had 2 custom gowns made for you, maternity designs. You'll be stunning. Don't worry. She smiled then. She trusted me. As for Milo, what happened to him in the end, I couldn't say for sure. It was just a quiet afternoon when Zach came by and told me the school had finally expelled him. Where he went after that? No idea. Maybe rehab. Maybe on the run with the same drug dealers he got himself tangled up with. I didn't care enough to ask. The night before our wedding, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Is there still a chance for us? I didn't need to check the name. I knew it was Riley. She'd tried to contact me several times lately. She said she regretted everything. Claimed she'd only dated Milo to get a rise out of me. But I wasn't that kind of man. I told her straight. When I date someone, it's because I see a future. Marriage. Kids. I don't do casual. She threw that away. So I let her go. Now, I stared at the message. My thumb hovered for a second, then I typed one word back. No. And as the clock ticked past midnight, the hands aligned. Tomorrow was the start of something new. Today is my wedding day. I picked up my phone and sent Ava a message. Happy wedding day. Almost instantly, a reply came in. Happy wedding day.